Welcome back to Son of a Preacher Man. Soapman is in the house. We interrupt our regular scheduled programming to bring you this special news bulletin. Folks, it appears we have dissension in the ranks. In my last episode, I made a video titled Exodus the Red Sea Trap, where I tried to show how the Red Sea crossing was really a trap for Pharaoh. The whole Red Sea crossing scene is one big mousetrap, and Moses was the cheese. It was a mousetrap designed by Moses especially for Pharaoh. And I used this slide as my thumbnail. So I received some pushback on my last episode. A couple of my subscribers seemed to think that the Red Sea crossing could not have been a trap, and I suspect I know the reason. You see, folks don't have a problem with me saying that Moses set a trap for Pharaoh, because it appears he does. But in suggesting that Moses was laying a trap for Pharaoh at the Red Sea crossing, suggests that he knew the sea was going to split. And for some folks, they just can't swallow that pill. Because to suggest that Moses knew the Red Sea was going to split is to remove God from the picture. Yeah, see, for some of these folks, they don't have a problem with Moses setting the trap up until the sea splits, okay? But to suggest that Moses knew that sea was gonna split is just a little bit too much science and not enough.
I want your attention, everything.
It's just not enough magic in the narrative that I'm pushing. I'm taking all the magic out of the story. I'm taking all of the abracadabra out of the story when I say Moses knew that sea was gonna split. For some of my subscribers, that's just a bridge too far. Now, for my loyal subscribers, this doesn't apply to you. Please don't think this applies to you. Please don't think this applies to my loyal subscribers, my loyal fan base, my acolytes, my coven, okay? This don't apply to you good, upstanding, tax-paying subscribers. We talking about the few dissenters in the ranks. We talking about the few conspirators, okay? We're talking about a mutiny by a small handful of bandits or pirates or troublemakers, if you will. Folks, listen, I thought we had an understanding. And the understanding that I thought we had was that as my subscribers, you're privy to the knowledge that I'm the Soapman, okay? Now, granted, I don't walk around in tights and leather boots and a cape. So as I said before, in my last video, I used a mousetrap as a way to model the Red Sea crossing for what it truly was. So in this episode, I doubled down on my stance using the slide that I originally wanted to use in the first place, but thought might be too offensive for some folk. Now, folks, I want you to know I put a lot of time and effort in thinking about how I can convince you and persuade you that I know what I'm talking about as far as the Red Sea crossing. It was a trap. So let me see if I can explain it to you this way. This is a tiger, okay? A tiger has stripes. It's one of the defining characteristics of a tiger. A tiger also leaves tiger tracks. It doesn't leave bear tracks because that would make it a bear, okay? It has stripes. It leaves tiger tracks. It roars. It has claws, a long tail. It has all these defining characteristics that say, hey, I'm a tiger. You know, folks can be identified by these signature characteristics. All living organisms have these signature characteristics. No pun intended, because I have a slide of someone's signature. People get convicted or exonerated by their signature. It's so unique to an individual that it's a way to identify them. It's a way to distinguish that person. It's a way to separate them. Sort of like a fingerprint. Another defining characteristics, like stripes on a tiger, okay? Because you may not know this, all tigers don't have the same stripes. They have different patterns. Those stripes are like fingerprints on that tiger. One girl told me I reminded her of a fox. And I'm gonna tell you folks, I don't think she meant it in a good way. But you see, even these animalistic characteristics can sometimes be used to define people. People have certain characteristics like animals. I suspect that young damsel was trying to say that I was crafty and, clever and manipulative. Hey, very perceptive girl. And I didn't argue with her. I tried to tell you about baby Moses. And I tried to emphasize these childhood characteristics that would later define the man. I told you that there was a prophecy about Moses long before he was born. This prophecy had the Egyptians on edge because the prophecy was about a Hebrew child that would be born that would bring the Hebrews high and the Egyptians low. And so the Egyptians were very paranoid about this prophecy because it came from a reliable prophet. And I didn't want to dig too far deep into it. I thought you would just take my word for it because, I'm the Soapman. But it seemed to have went in one ear and out the other. So let me tell you again. There was a prophecy about Moses. And so the Egyptians, in their fear and fright and paranoia, passed a law that all male Hebrew children were to be killed. And it was because of their fear of this prophecy of this child. So baby Moses was born into a real complicated and contentious time. He was born in a time where all of his peers and kinfolk were being thrown into the Nile River to drown and get eaten up by the wildlife because the Egyptians were so paranoid about this prophecy. And here you got this little baby who slips through the cracks. The daughter of Pharaoh is so taken by this cute little bundle of joy. Look at him, he's just so cute. He was just so cute and adorable. She just couldn't bring herself to dispose of him. She couldn't bring herself to kill this gorgeous, cute little baby. And yes, indeed, Josephus emphasizes that Moses was a beautiful child. And even the Bible describes Moses as a baby as being goodly. It says that when his mother had him, she saw that he was goodly. And so naturally, Pharaoh's daughter, she just saw this adorable bundle of joy. But some folks saw Moses for what he really was, even as a baby. And what they saw swaddled in those baby wrappings was a bomb. They saw a weapon of mass destruction. They said to Pharaoh, kill this little son of a so-and-so before it's too late. They said this child is the child of the prophecy that was spoken of. The story of baby Moses reminds me about a story my mother told me about a lady and a snake. You see, this lady finds a snake in the cold and she feels so sorry for him. Against her better judgment, she rescues the snake and nurses him back to health. Now, folks, I'm not gonna go off into the details of the story, but I think it's safe to say that by the end of the story, the lady wishes she had left that snake right where she found him. Folks, understand this. It's not many babies that don't look adorable. Normally, you don't look at a baby and say, hey, this kid is gonna grow up to be a mass murderer. Except for Charles Manson, of course. Charles Manson may be the only exception to this rule, because he looked psychotic even as a baby, and he grew up to be a psychopath. But you take Ted Bundy, for example. He didn't look like a serial killer when he was born. You couldn't look at Ted Bundy and say, hey, he's gonna grow up and, grape and extinguish a dozen or more women. In fact, a lot of women confessed that they thought Ted Bundy was handsome. Imagine their shock when they realized what he really was. People don't like to discuss the childhood of Moses. If you read the Bible, there's not much to discuss. But Josephus gives us a few valuable nuggets about Moses' life growing up in the royal household. It's a lot of Moses' past that he doesn't like to talk about. And it's a lot of his past that folks don't like to talk about because it's an uncomfortable past when you're talking about Moses. For instance, the Bible says Moses had an Ethiopian wife. How you like that, huh? How you like that? Moses had a black wife. But folks don't like to talk about that because she's black. Because they don't want to talk about it. They also don't want to talk about how Moses killed a man. Yeah, Moses murdered a man. Now, you may say he was justified in doing so. The man was beating an innocent Hebrew slave, and Moses came to his rescue. But the fact is, Moses was guilty of murdering this Egyptian overseer, and he went on the run for it. He fled Egypt for the murder he committed. He fled Egypt a fugitive. And so, folks, when you put this into perspective, what you see on this slide is an escaped convict, but not just any escaped convict. What you see escaping from Egypt, what just slipped through the fingers of Pharaoh and his administration, what just slipped through the cracks, it's the most dangerous individual on earth. This is a dangerous man, and the Egyptians just let him get away. You see, folks, I'm trying to paint a picture for you, and I'm trying to paint an accurate picture, not biased, not my opinion. I'm trying to paint a portrait of the real individual, of the real Moses, because I don't want you to be fooled. I don't want you to be deceived. I don't want you to be Pharaoh. Do not be Pharaoh and underestimate this man, because he is too dangerous for you to underestimate. That child that grew into a man who became a felon and escaped Egypt, he got older and bigger and stronger and wiser, and he came back. He came back to wreak havoc upon the Egyptians, just like the prophecy said he would. And all the destruction he's going to bring upon the Egyptians, just think to yourself, this is the face that's going to do it. He's not going to do it right now in this state, but this is the bringer. This is the harbinger. Moses tried to warn Pharaoh. He tried to warn him, didn't he? He came back. And he asked him very politely to let his people go. Time and time and time again, Pharaoh still refused to listen. And look where it landed Pharaoh. Look where he ended up. 10 plagues later, he's holding his dead firstborn son. Look at the result of getting tangled up with this man. If the children of Israel prayed to God for an answer to their problems, and God sends Moses, are you suggesting God's answer was insufficient? Are you trying to say Moses wasn't good enough? He wasn't magical enough? What are you saying when you say Moses didn't know that sea was gonna split? What are you saying when you say Moses didn't set a trap for Pharaoh? You say he's incapable of doing that? You saying God's hand picked the one person he has trust in, who he loves, he has faith in, the one person that God substitutes for himself? God tells Moses, you're going in my place, and your brother Aaron is going to go before you in your place. God is telling Moses, you're going to act as me, and your brother Aaron is going to act as you. You think this person that God chose to save the Hebrews can't set a trap? You think a prophet like Moses can't prophesy? You think the person that God said is the greatest prophet that will ever come out of the house of Israel can't play chess? Is that what you're saying? You cannot look at Moses and see a harmless person. You cannot look at Moses and treat him like he's ordinary. You must think outside the box. You must see things for not how you want them to be, but for what they are.
Hear you nothing that I say? You must unlearn what you have learned.
Yo, I tried to warn you about this man, okay? I tried to warn you about this man. The prophecy tried to warn you about this man. This is a man of war. This is a man of wisdom. His wife called him a bloody man for a reason. You must get this goody-goody two-shoes halo over his head, wings sprouting out of his back. You need to step into the real world. This man is about business like a mob boss. Folks, when Moses goes to Etham, and I talked about this in previous episodes, these are the facts. Look at this map. I have it here for a reason. Moses is probably one of the wisest men who ever lived. He is deadly strategic and deadly accurate. And like the tiger, he has certain characteristics that define him. Now, Etham is a place of high elevation. I'm not saying Etham is a place of high elevation because I'm trying to push a narrative. I'm saying Etham is a place of high elevation because it's a fact. So do you think the smartest man, one of the smartest men who ever lived, went to this place of high elevation by happenstance? And mind you, the Bible says he dwelt in the wilderness for 40 years. This area is where he dwelt for 40 years. He knows this area. So do you think that the smartest, one of the smartest men who ever lived, went to this place of high elevation, Etham, spontaneously? It's on the way of where he's going. You didn't think he knew about this place beforehand? You don't think he thought this through beforehand? You don't think he knew about this place before he got there with the millions of Hebrews? You don't think he knew about this place beforehand, dwelling in the desert for 40 years? It's the perfect place to turn around and look behind you. Here's why. Look where it's positioned. Etham is just north of the Red Sea. Yam Suf, it's called Yam Suf in the Bible. That's why you see it says Yam Suf on this slide. Etham is just, look at it strategically. Look at it strategically. Look at it militarily. Because Moses would have looked at this place strategically and militarily. He's at a place of high elevation where he can turn around and look behind him. And you saying he didn't? Why wouldn't he? Moses is not going to take millions of people to the Red Sea on a hunch. He's not going to take millions of people to the Red Sea because he thinks that Pharaoh is following him. He's going to do this and set this trap because he's certain Pharaoh has followed him. This is not a man who takes chances. This is not a man who takes risk. Look where Etham is. Moses can either, he does not have to cross that sea. Folks, listen to me. Moses does not have to cross the Red Sea. Look at this slide. He can just keep straight. He can just keep straight and avoid crossing the sea. I'm giving you the proof that it's a trap. I'm giving you the evidence that he set a trap. Because whether Pharaoh is following Moses or not, Moses doesn't have to cross Yam Suf. Look at the map. Etham is in your bottom right-hand corner. It's circled. It's labeled. Look at Etham in comparison in proximity to the Red Sea, Yam Suf. He can go straight over the top. He doesn't have to cross it. He can go right over the top and continue to run from Pharaoh. He can go down on the other side of Yam Suf and hide and wait for Pharaoh if he wants to fight him. There is only, let me repeat, there is only one reason why you would take this 90-degree turn into and corner yourself at the Red Sea, and that is to drown Pharaoh's ass. Folks, I know this is hard for some of you, okay? Growing up the way we grew up, being taught the traditions that we taught, I know it seems like I'm taking the magic out of your trick. To suggest that Moses knew that sea was gonna split beforehand is not a small thing to suggest. So let's go to Moses' words himself. Exodus 14, 1 through 4 states, this is while Moses is at Etham. He says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel that they turn around. Now let's just stop there for a minute. Moses is at Etham. He's at a place of high elevation. And instead of continuing on to Mount Sinai, which is the trajectory in which they're on, instead of doing that, he makes a 90-degree turn and corners himself between mountains and the sea, okay? Now, folks, if you was watching a Tom and Jerry cartoon and you saw Jerry do this, you would know it was a trap. If this was Tom and Jerry, you would not hesitate to know that Jerry was setting a trap for Tom. Because you know Jerry is a little trickster. Okay? Jerry is always playing pranks and tricks and setting traps for Tom. But because it's Moses, and you have this goody two-shoe perception of him like he's above setting a trap, or he's too good, or, too prestigious to stoop so low. Because you have this perception of Moses as somebody who's above dirty tricks or somehow above getting his hands dirty, you don't see Moses for what he really is. Folks, Moses is Jerry. Moses is Jerry, and Pharaoh is Tom. And the reason Moses is cornering himself, the reason he's running away from Tom, is because just like Jerry, just like it's Jerry's character to set a trap for Tom. It's what he does best. Trapping Tom and setting Tom up for the fail is what Jerry does best. So, like Jerry, Moses is running from Pharaoh into a trap, into a corner. Moses is luring Pharaoh into his trap that has already been set. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's get it right from the horse's mouth. Because Moses is going to tell you why God turns him to tell the children of Israel to turn around. So it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, at Etham, mind you, saying, speak unto the children of Israel that they turn around and encamp and corner themselves in Pi-hahiroth between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon. Before it shall ye encamp by the sea. Now, Moses is gonna tell us why he is cornering himself at the Red Sea crossing. Why are you doing this, Moses? The Bible says, for Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land. The wilderness hath shut them in. Folks, in other words, Moses wants Pharaoh to think he is lost. Folks, listen to me. You can think whatever you want to think, but this is a hump you can't get over. Because Moses confesses his reasoning. He says, God tells me to turn around with all these millions of people so that Pharaoh will think he is lost. Moses is not lost, so he is doing this to fool Pharaoh. He wants Pharaoh to believe something that is not true. That is the very definition of a trap. But the hump that people can't get over is really specifically the splitting of the Red Sea. So let me address this. Moses is clearly setting a trap. He does all but says so. He says, I want to fool Pharaoh. I want to trick him. I want to deceive him. I want him to think I'm lost. Here's how we know Moses is not lost. Here's the evidence. Here it comes. Get ready for it. Get your catcher's mitt. Okay? You got it? Ready? Moses says God tells him, turn around and encamp before Pi-hahiroth. That is a specific name for a specific area. He says between Migdol and the sea. He is giving a specific area a name. And he goes further. He says, over against Baal-zephon. So he gives you three names. Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, and over against Baal-zephon. If I start describing places in Chicago, it's because I've been there. You don't go to a place and you name in specific place, and that's your first time being there? What, you just discovered it this first time and gave it a name? Or have you been there before and that's how you know the name? Come on, man. Stop playing with me. This place he's describing the Red Sea corner trap by name. Folks, what more do you want? What more do you need? The man is naming a place by name, dog. You know what I'm saying? If I say, dog, meet me over there at Gleason, you know what I'm saying? Over by that tree that's been struck by lightning by the fence. 30 yards to the right. I've been there. I'm describing a place I'm familiar with. Mind you, Moses dwelt in the desert for 40 years. Could that be the reason he knows Etham? Could that be the reason he's naming the Red Sea crossing by specific name places because it's a big place. The Red Sea crossing, the beach, that place he's talking about between Migdol and the sea, is a big place. God tells Moses to turn, and you see this little winding vein to this beach that leads to what's called Nuweiba Beach today. God tells Moses to take these people into this rough, one-way street. And folks, if you was Pharaoh and you saw this, you would think what any normal person would think. You would think, this dude must be crazy. I'm chasing him and he's running into a corner. He has nowhere to go. What's he gonna do? Split the sea? Of course Pharaoh's not expecting that. He is thinking exactly what Moses wants him to think. He's thinking that Moses has trapped himself. But what Pharaoh does not understand is Moses is the bait. The rest is history. Okay? Regardless to what anyone may think what happened, and what happened is Pharaoh and his entire army were drowned in the Red Sea, and Moses didn't even have to fight it. You see this pattern repeated in several of the patriarchs in the Bible, not just Moses. You see it with Abraham. You see it with David. You see it with King Solomon. This is not a one-off to Moses where you go into battle and you don't lose a man. This isn't a one-off with Moses. This is not the first or only time he has went into battle and not lost any of his troops. Because setting traps is characteristic of this man. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That is how you know that the Red Sea trap was a trap. Because this is just a tiger leaving tiger's tracks. This is just a tiger who has stripes because he's a tiger. I'd like to thank you for joining me for this episode of Son of a Preacher Man. If you have any compliments, comments, insults, or inquiries, please leave them in the comments section. If you have any topics you'd like me to discuss or questions you'd like me to answer, please leave them in the comments section. If you just want to argue and fight, I'm down. Folks, I'll see you next time. Same soap time, same soap channel. Soapman. Deuces.